So Fitz, the Elite 11.
Is that you? Was that you on the guitar? Was it
Yes.
playing your own? That's very nice. I like that.
Yes, I not only can I do graphics, I also know how to play the guitar. I don't. So big weekend. Where do you want to start? Because there was an official visit. There's several camps. There's a lot of news coming out about the Nittany Lions. Where do you want to start with updating everybody on Penn State recruiting from this past week?
Let's start with the official visit. Iose Epenesa, not back on campus for the first time. Again, I've said this before, I think it's going to be tough for Penn State to get the first visit and then sustain any momentum they have coming out of that over the span of the next 4 weeks. It's going to be tough. But you've got an opportunity here. And you look at the comments that he made to Steve Wiltfong. By the way, that was on 3. Check it out if you get a chance. A lot of surprise, which tells me that Penn State was not painted as such by some people that maybe they're recruiting against. Do I smell a rat? I don't know. But you look at the competition. It's pretty funny. But no, I think the family was surprised by what they saw. I think they got connections with the staff. They mentioned several times that the staff has a deep connection to Penn State in that there's Pennsylvania guys, there's Penn State guys, there's guys that, weren't on the team all that long ago, Jordan Lucas, for example. So like you've got, you find that family atmosphere in the family that it is cultivated. And that's what the coaching staff right now. So I think Penn State helped themselves. Again, it's going to be tough for them to sustain this over the next 5 weeks, but I think getting one of those visits and them essentially going out of their way to visit Penn State to fit them into their schedule, I think it says something. It's going to be tough. Really good player, defensive end, maybe a defensive tackle. He's a big kid. Yeah. Maybe a defensive tackle at the next level. But one of those top tier targets from out of the region that Penn State's going after on the D-line.
How would you characterize what they would need to do in order to turn the tide? Because they had their visit, and I mean, is it a one-shot thing? Can they be in communication? Can they visit him again at some point? If they can even say, just make him delay his decision, make him rethink things so he doesn't announce after all of his official visits are completed. What is the path to success here, do you think?
I still think he would like to decide before the season. So getting him back on campus, nearly impossible. I wouldn't label it completely impossible because you have that weekend in July where they have the Lash Bash that you could possibly get guys back on campus. There's one thing about setting the bar, and it's that bar, once it's set, especially on a first visit, can probably move pretty easily. So you got to knock, we're going to hit all the cliches here. You got to knock it out of the park. I think Penn State did an excellent job. Is enough for a kid from Illinois that it's got ties to Iowa. That's a tough sell, but I think Penn State's in it. Like, I think coming out of it, they were very impressed with the Penn State staff.
And it's going to be an interesting one because he would be a really valuable addition as far as a guy who you can see a path to him contributing early with some upheaval coming up at that position where there might be opportunity for a guy to come in who's big, strong, long, physical, and has an NFL brother you can see in his tape, like the way he plays and his level of advanced play at the position. So I think it's an interesting recruitment and one that I'm excited to follow as we go through this.
Yeah, and if you're looking at the competition here, and he's got those 5 official visits that are the 4 that are there to come to Missouri, to Iowa, to Utah, and Miami. That's not exactly Georgia, Alabama, Ohio State. Like, there's an opportunity there. Like, and this is a guy whose brother's in the NFL. They've seen the development. Like, what usually guys are, kind of blinded with all the flash and the recruiting and things, but you've seen the development. Of course, Iowa, does an excellent job with that. And Miami's put guys in the first round that have, essentially been on the brink of retirement or actually have retired and come back and played in the first round. So there's development in all these places, but Penn State's done a really good job with that. So I think that there's an opportunity there to win it, because this is not exactly the blueprint of the national recruit that you would think with a top 100 player.
What's next in your recruiting rundown or recap of this past weekend?
Well, you and I were at Memorial Field, downtown State College, for the Elite 11. Excellent event put on by Brian Stumpf and his crew. Always good. A long day for quarterbacks. A lot of balls being thrown. Also a long day for pass catchers. Andrew Olish was there all day. Brady O'Hara was there all day, just running thousands of routes to as the vessel for the quarterback. So no, but it was a good time. What do you want to start with? You want to start with quarterbacks? You want to start with position players?
Let's start with quarterbacks. Let's start with the guys that stood out to you or that were interesting to you as far as what you took away from that part of the day. And then we can get into some of the conversation around the pass catchers at the end.
All right. Got to start with Bekkem Kritza because he's committed to Penn State. This is a guy, this is the second time I've seen him throw. Saw him at mini camp last year beside Ethan Grunkmeyer. I think he exceeded my expectations, to be honest with you. I'm been writing and been talking about, this is a guy that's got some question marks that come with the 4 different moves, and now he's back in Miami Central. So there's been a bunch of questions about this recruiting, but he goes out there, throws the ball extremely well. And what I like is his release. What I like is that the coaches were able to coach him up to get him in the right slot. And when he did, probably threw it as well as anybody there. Now, It wasn't the consistency of some of the other guys. Ryan Montgomery, who's committed to Georgia, was really good the other day. Matt Zollers was kind of in the Kritza blend of like, when he hits it really well. But he's still got some work to do. So this guy is pushing 6'6". He's built like a flamingo. I mean, he is tall and skinny, plenty of room to fill out. But he also gets that he is a complete project. Like he told me, he's 20% of the quarterback that he thinks he can be. I mean, that's good. I don't do percentages, but to have 80% left of growth, let's hope he does for Penn State's sake. But I think, going in, I wasn't sure how he would stack up, but he hung in there with some other good national quarterback names, did a really good job. Again, long way to go for Bekkem Kritza, but I think he exceeded my expectations this weekend.
So if you want to get more information, I wrote about that. Fitz wrote about it over at bluewhiteillustrated.com. Sign up right now. Use code PSU1. You get 2 months for $1. You get the inside information, including some of the numbers and the figures that we were able to gather out there to give you some context about the athletes that Penn State has either recruited or are trying to recruit at the quarterback position. And a lot of their targets and commits throughout the region were at the Elite 11. One thing I'm interested in, Fitz, let's stick with quarterback for a minute and then get back to some of those guys at the positional situations. You wrote about Dia Bell last night, having a chance to talk to him afterwards and having a chance to see him up close for the first time. What were your impressions about him, and what were your impressions about how he performed?
Very smooth, very poised. A guy, I don't think he's got the biggest arm in the class, but he is a guy that's got a lot of the fundamentals down. He looked like a guy that was a little bit older than, the rest of his 2026, 2027 group. But yeah, he put the ball on the mark several times. I think he's as he throws one away on the YouTube. So great timing by me there.
In my defense, I only got to see him a little bit because I was following the main group with all the guys we just talked about. So I have I emptied the chamber on what I had on Dia.
Yeah, Dia was good. He was poised. And like I said, when you're a son of a professional athlete, you kind of get there a little bit faster than everybody else. So he understands the situation. I talked to him afterward. He talked about Penn State. He was there on Saturday. I think Penn State's in the mix. I think I think they got a shot here. Of course, Texas is going to be one that's serious. LSU is going to be serious. And there's a bunch of schools that you could see him potentially ending up at. But he's been to Penn State as many, if not more, than any other school. Keeps coming back, and that's a good opportunity. He's got a great relationship with Danny O'Brien. Man, I talked to a bunch of quarterbacks this week, and even Matt Zollers, who's committed to Missouri. These guys love Danny O'Brien, so that's something to keep in mind for the future. If if the NCAA opens this floodgate for unlimited coaches, I think that's certainly a helpful cog in Penn State's offensive recruiting machine. So, but yeah, I like what I saw from Dia Bell. I think we have him 12th overall in the country. Be interesting to see where he goes up. I'm not saying he's going to fall or anything like that, but
right.
He's going to be a top 100 guy. But 12th is really, really high. But then again, I'm pessimistic and conservative when it comes to that.
But it is. I think you make a good point in terms of flesh out that idea. He kind of blends into the crowd of his contemporary quarterback. So he doesn't have a singular trait of, he doesn't have an incredibly strong arm or a massive frame that you feel like he's going to be 6'5" and throw the ball downfield with a lot of velocity. But at the same time, like as much as you said, he looks like a kind of an older kid. I thought he clearly still has that youthful, like I still have growing to do from a physical standpoint of putting on muscle and kind of changing your body over into what you're going to be as an adult. And I think that there's a lot of growth potential within his frame. The question just becomes like, what are the upsides of these things? Because he's incredibly polished. Like looking at him pass, everything looks easy and effortless. You brought this up, and this was in the BWI mailbag, so I do want to just quickly touch on this. Doug 21988 asks, not sure what the time frame is, but unlimited coaches. I would assume allow Penn State to have separate linebacker from DC coaches. You mentioned Danny O'Brien in that conversation. Seems like it's pretty important to keep him around. Do you have any insight on what the plan is for that, the voting, and when it could be implemented?
Yeah, that's one thing that got approved last year, and then it went to a vote and got struck down. I think there's questions about fairness, because a lot of these schools can throw 30 guys out there, and that's just a number. But then it becomes the Toledos of the world and all these other schools. How is it fair to them? So I think that was the big thing. So it's been approved again. It's going to go to a vote again. I thought it would pass last year. Seems like there's more support this year. Very much we will see. The second part of that question, Dan Connor's there, man. What else do you want? It's a Penn State guy.
Yeah.
I mean, no, but he's one of those guys like an O'Brien on the defensive side of the ball. Really respected. I think he was a big part of Anthony Specca's commitment, Alex Tash as well. Like they kind of click with Dan Connor. So it's probably a conversation to be had here of when you go to unlimited coaches, maybe they're a little bit more anonymous. This is not a situation. I mean, you can sit there and name the 10 assistant coaches off the top of your head for Penn State. Most, if you're listening to this podcast, you probably can. But like if you get to it and you have 25 coaches, hey, you're not going to know, some of these analyst names. Like you're not going to know
the assistant cornerback coach or the
Correct.
assistant running back coach is not somebody who's going to be, unless they were a famous former player.
Yeah, I was just trying to pull names from the analyst pool last year and realized a bunch of them left. So, and that's normal. That's normal. That's not a thing. Yeah. So I was going to say Gabe Infante, and then I was like, oh, that's right. He's a defensive coach at Duke now. So, yeah, there's that. So, that's what I would say about that is you see guys in that role that you think can be coaches sort of helping out there, and helping out's an abstract term because they obviously do a lot.
Just a quick recap of what you saw from the Penn State athletes that were non-quarterbacks at the Elite 11. Want to make sure we just get a brief conversation about that before we get going.
Yeah, Lyric Samuel, I think, looked fantastic. Put some clips up there on Twitter. He was probably, it was the top receiver on hand. A really good attention to detail, which, we stereotype guys that are coming from New York City as guys that are going to have to eventually learn. He was very detail oriented in terms of getting off the ball, getting off the jam and things like that, which is really good to see. Still room to fill out. I mean, he's 6'3.5". You're in a 4.53, which matched his camp time from last year, which as T Frank, as we've talked about before, you hear 4.5 and you're like, okay, he's not a burner. At 6'3.5", that is freaking moving.
He's a big dude.
Yeah, he's a big guy. Matt Henderson was there, the tight end. He had to leave a little bit early, kind of tweaked a hamstring, but he held his own. He more than held his own. Looked really good catching the football. Andrew Olish, man, he looked excellent. He looked like, I don't want to say on par with Luke Reynolds last year, because Luke Reynolds just kind of dominated that whole day last year. But he was
against
up there.
Better competition too. I thought the defensive backs struggled a little bit. It was, Lyric Samuel and Andrew Olish were 10 yards open on some of the deep routes they ran.
Yeah, the problem with this camp is that you want to bring in certain guys, and then your defensive back group is 6 people. And they're going through, and I feel bad for those D-backs because you're one-on-ones, your back's against the wall the entire time, and then you got to eventually take a rep and then go take another rep, which is great for competition. But at the same time, those guys get tired pretty fast. So that is the downside. Scheduling it on the weekend of Under Armour in Baltimore, I got many opinions on that. I think it kind of hurt both aspects because you look at Baltimore, what they had, and Ryan was down there, not a ton of quarterbacks going down there. So
yeah,
hopefully next year things get better and they can reschedule all that.